After an intense and passionate encounter, Suwon was drenched in sweat. Gu Baisen didn't go to take a shower as he used to, but instead, he hugged her tightly from behind, as if he wanted to press her into his body. Suwon was almost melted by his embrace, feeling a mix of surprise, nervousness, excitement, and a bit of heartache. They had been married for 3 years, and this was the first time he had hugged her like this. She felt a sense of being deeply loved. Her heart was pounding like a fawn in a frenzy, and she slowly turned around, embracing him tightly with a sweet and beautiful smile on her face, as if she was holding the whole world. They hugged for a long time. Gu Baisen let her go, put on his clothes, sat up, took out a pack of cigarettes from the drawer, shook out a cigarette skillfully, lit it, and took a deep puff. The white smoke swirled around, blurring the outline of his handsome and heroic face, making it impossible to see his expression or to know what he was thinking. He didn't even notice when the cigarette was about to burn his fingers. Suwon coughed lightly. "Didn't you quit smoking a long time ago?" Gu Baisen extinguished the cigarette, looked at her with deep eyes, and after a few seconds of silence said, "Suwon, let's separate." It was like a thunderclap on a clear day. Suwon was stunned. Her burning heart cooled down instantly and froze in an instant. She looked at him with a pale face, trembling voice, and asked, "What did I do wrong?" "Nothing. Why do we have to separate?" "Sua Sua is back. I'm sorry." Choose Sua Sua, his ex-girlfriend. Suwon's heart was like being cut with a knife. 3 years of being together day and night, sharing weal and woe, but it couldn't compare to that woman's return. He didn't love her. That was her biggest mistake. Loss, frustration, and sadness overwhelmed her, and Suwon bit her lip tightly, her body stiff. She put on her clothes with trembling fingers and was about to get out of bed. Gu Baisen held her shoulder and asked in a gentle voice, "Where are you going?" Suwon tried her best to hold back her tears, to make breakfast. "I used to do it. Let me do it today. You sleep a bit more." His voice was low and gentle. Suwon, a sound, lay down, pulled the quilt to cover her damp eyes. After he left, she got out of bed, ran into the bathroom, and couldn't help it anymore, crying. Tears were like broken beads, and they couldn't stop. She never knew that loving someone could hurt so much, hurting to the point where he was a lump of flesh gouged out of her heart. She was in so much pain that she couldn't stand, leaning against the wall, crying and trembling. After a while, Gu Baisen called her to eat downstairs. Suwon responded, splashed cold water, and washed her eyes over and over again. But no matter how much she washed, her eyes were still red, as if they were filled with blood. She went downstairs, and Gu Baisen was waiting for her in the dining room. He was wearing a well-tailored high-end suit, with long legs under the dark trousers, and his whole body exuded a gentle and noble temperament. Just standing there, he was already dazzling. Suwon walked to the table and sat down silently. Gu Baisen leaned over slightly, looking at her red eyes. His eyes were particularly gentle. "Did you cry?" Suwon raised her face, forced a smile at him. "I accidentally got the facial cleanser in my eyes when I washed my face. It will be fine later. Be more careful next time. Let's eat." Gu Baisen sat down next to her and handed her the chopsticks. Suwon reached out and took it, lowered her eyes, and looked at his beautiful fingers on the chopsticks. The sumptuous breakfast exuded an enticing fragrance, but neither of them moved their chopsticks. She had never eaten a meal so sad in her life. Half an hour later, the food was still untouched. Suwon put down her chopsticks, held the table corner, stood up, and said softly, "I'm going to pack my luggage." Gu Baixian's hand holding the chopsticks was slightly tight, no rush. Suwon smiled bitterly. "It's like this. Not in a hurry to leave. Is it waiting to be driven away?" She turned around and went upstairs, throwing her things into the suitcase one by one, packed for a while, finally clicked the zipper and carried it downstairs. Gu Baixian came up, reached for the suitcase. "Let me do it." "No need." Suwon picked up the suitcase, straightened her back, and walked out. Passing through the courtyard, looking at the familiar flowers and plants, she couldn't help feeling sentimental. People are not plants and trees who can be unemotional. 3 years, this so-called long-term affection, turned out to be just her own thing. She loved him so much, wholeheartedly, with passion and affection. What's the use? Let go, let go. The two walked one after the other to the front door, and the car was waiting outside. Gu Beixian handed over a check. Thank you for your company these 3 years. Suwon stood stubbornly, not knowing whether to take it or not. Gu Beixian stuffed the check into her suitcase. Take it, you will need a lot of money in the future. Suwon responded dryly, looked up, and looked greedily at his beautiful lips, high nose, and handsome eyebrows. Recalling in bed, he covered her eyes with his eyes, and from then on, the stars were full of the sky. Her heart was like a knife, and she was too painful to speak. She thought, there will be a day in this life when she can finally stop loving him. 3 years? 10 years? It may take a lifetime. Falling in love with someone seems easy, but forgetting him is very, very difficult. Gu Beixian looked at her for a while, suddenly pulled her into his arms. His face was calm, but his eyes were surging. In the future, it won't be easy for you alone. Call me if you have difficulties. Tears came up, swallowed. Suwon said, Okay. In the past 2 years, my health was not good, and my temper was very bad, and I made you suffer. It's okay. Take care of yourself. You too. Suwon slowly raised her hand, hugged him, as if parting forever. Suddenly, she let go of him. She pushed him away, wiped her face quickly, picked up the suitcase, and turned around and left. After a few steps, she suddenly heard Gu Beixian ask, Who is Ayao? The heart trembled slightly, and Suwon's raised foot slowly fell. The dusty past, like a mountain collapsing, hit down. She was too sad to speak. I heard Gu Beixian say again, He must be very important to you, right? I'm sorry for occupying you for 3 years. I wish you happiness.